All right. So we will give it a couple minutes to let people filter in. And just for the recording, for people
Fantastic.
that don't know who's talking, my name is Ryan Knight, and our presenter today is Tafuma Musewe. Close? No? Last name? No?
Yeah, perfect. Perfect,
Yeah?
actually. Yeah, well done. You nailed it.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm here with a few colleagues too. They'll introduce themselves
Oh,
a
great.
bit later. But Nyaleti is here, and Marcus should be joining shortly,
So,
both from South Africa.
cool. And yeah, so I'll just say we'll give it about a minute and then we'll jump right into it. And it is being recorded, so we'll send the recording to everybody afterwards. And also, I'm going to figure out how to have it on a replay because this is a question that I'm sure is going to come up often. We'll use this as that kind of first introduction to what Eschaton does, and then we'll be able to send
Fantastic.
people your way.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
So we got Marcus. Marcus is online, which is
Oh,
great.
great.
He's the second person I mentioned that'll be joining us. We should probably just do a mic check quickly with Marcus too.
Sounds good.
Hey guys, Marcus, yeah.
There we go.
Awesome.
All right, we're good. Marcus has that 12:30 at night, midnight sound to his voice.
Right.
This is the time.
I appreciate that, Marcus. Holy.
Yeah.
All right. So for those that are just joining, we are about to get started. My name is Ryan Knight, one of the co-founders of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network, the current acting executive director. And it was through my travels with our nonprofit that I was able to bump into or be introduced to Tafuma and the work that he does with international relations, and specifically got to talk to him about expanding my own business, Detailing Nights, to Africa. And I've been totally blown away with the team's work ethic, the process, and how much I'm learning that we asked their team to do a presentation for the ACBN network, just so that anybody that's thinking of expanding to Africa, you would now know a great first step to take. So I will give the floor to you, Tafuma, to introduce yourself. I have my notepad and paper, even though I've kind of already gone through it, but looking to learn more. So yeah, your team can take it over. Just let me know if you're able to share.
Sure. Let me see if I can do that quickly. I think this is the one I want. Yeah, that's the one I want. Okay, so. Yeah, so can you see my screen?
Yes, all good.
Okay, fantastic. Well, firstly, Ryan, thank you so much for making the opportunity for me to join you with my team, with part of my team today, or this afternoon, this evening, depending on where you are. It's an absolute pleasure, Ryan. And, you know, so as Ryan has referenced, we've had a relationship previous to this because we've been helping Detailing Nights with entering South Africa in particular. And it's just, it's been a great journey. He's actually been, if I could say, a bit of a guinea pig because we developed a program specifically for Ryan and his network, the ACBN. So it's fantastic that we've actually got to this point now where we feel ready to share it with the rest of your network, Ryan. So thank you for trusting us to do that and for working so well with us. So without further ado, nice to see everybody else who's here online. Feel free just to shout out, you know, in the chat box where you're from. And also, as we go throughout the presentation, would love to hear a little bit about whatever country or city in the continent of Africa you are interested in penetrating or exploring as a market for your business, your nonprofit, or whatever organization you are currently working in. So yeah, so I'm going to get started now, and let me just say that the name of my company is, and it's a mouthful, it's called Eschaton Solutions. And Ryan actually asked me what that's about. And it really has to do, Eschaton has the idea of a decisive time to act. And that's what it really refers to. That's what it references. Because in founding this company, I've had this belief that now is Africa's time. And it sometimes sounds a bit cliche, but it's something I've held onto for most of my adult and young adult life, and I've invested a lot into. So in terms of who we are and what we do, the vision behind Eschaton is really to usher in a new era of trade, collaboration, and partnership between Africa and other regions of the world. And just give me 1 second while I get this thumbnail set right. Okay, that's fine. So, so the idea, the real vision is to do this, to create these connections between Africa and other regions of the world. And it comes out of my, as I say, personal vision. I'll just give you a very brief personal background. So I grew up in Toronto, and I lived and worked on the continent for about 11 years. I lived mainly in South Africa, also in Ghana, so Southern and Western Africa. And what drew me there was a passion for development and for connecting with the land of my ancestors. And ultimately, I ended up in the market intelligence space. And what I was doing there was consulting multinational clients that wanted to break into different African markets. So about 4 years ago, I returned back to Canada, and I basically realized that there was a real lack of engagement between Africa and African markets and Canada. And if you really look at where there is traction, typically it's in the mining space. And a lot of Canadians actually don't even know that Canada is the mining capital of the world. About 70% of the world's mining companies are headquartered here in Canada for various reasons. But outside of the mining space, there's so little traction. But I know that having lived on the ground and worked specifically with helping clients understand the opportunities, I know the opportunities are immense and the synergies are also really strong. So what that led me to do was to establish Eschaton Solutions as a go-to consultancy to actually help Canadian clients primarily access these markets. And I just want you to know, as we go into this, that I have a very Pan-African approach because my father is from Zimbabwe, but my mom is from Trinidad and Tobago. So I really have an appreciation for the African diaspora right across the world. And I believe that the connections need to be drawn, need to be made. So as you can see, we offer three main things. One is trade advisory, the other is innovation projects and investment advisory. So trade advisory is where we'll spend our time today, and that's the focus of this presentation. Innovation projects are projects that we develop in-house and then bring to execution. Investment advisory is working with investors as well as companies which are sourcing capital. That's on hold right now because I also have a role with a private equity firm. So due to conflict of interest, we're really focused on trade advisory. You can see on the bottom there some of our past and strategic clients. And the first one I've listed is Detailing Knights. So your fearless leader, Ryan Knight, that's his company. And we've been working with him. And these are just a selection of others. So you can see that we've worked with private sector and public sector companies or organizations, both in Canada as well as on the continent. So at this point, what I would also like to do, as I mentioned, I have two team members who are here. Nyaleti and Marcus, and I'm just going to ask them to share very briefly a little bit about themselves, starting with Nyaleti.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nyaleti. I'm based in South Africa. I own a company called Hit South Media. We are a branding and marketing firm that brands companies from all over the world through the mainly South African, but through the African markets. And I've been a close friend and colleague. We always started off as colleagues of Tafuma for many, many years. I don't know the maths anymore, but yeah.
Fantastic. And so, yeah, Nyaleti is a really key collaborator with us when it comes to, again, branding and marketing within the context that she's based, so South Africa and also beyond. So over to Marcus.
Hi guys, so I'm essentially the market researcher at Eschaton Solutions. Predominantly, I'm a researcher. I ascertain insights and intelligence and data on various markets, from mining to renewable energy to the automotive industry, and basically whatever business area of interest that clients would be interested in. And my responsibilities mainly revolve around going on the ground, conducting all the hard work, doing field work and whatnot, generating data and insights, desktop research, surveys and whatnot to better inform business decisions. In South Africa, I've been involved in containing the COVID-19 pandemic. I've published quite a lot of scientific insights on that with Palgrave Macmillan, and I just love research, I love insights, and I love knowledge, and diverting those insights and knowledge to where it's needed the most, which is business, and how that creates job opportunities, and yeah, just incubates the economy in a conducive way to facilitate both business and alleviate socioeconomic issues. So yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, and Marcus, we've worked together as well on some major accounts in the past. So it's fantastic to have part of our team here. Some of them couldn't make it today for various reasons, but yeah, we will continue now. So thank you for that. So just one thing I wanted to mention, I see in the chat there was a question around the actual sector, so around music. Thank you for that question. So we're actually sector agnostic, meaning that we will look at any sector because the opportunities are really right across all industries and sectors, in the continent, some stronger than others. But yeah, so we can look at other sectors. So just to give you an overview of the continent, Africa, firstly, is massive. We talk about it as a singular entity. Even now, as I'm presenting, I'm very aware that there are 55 countries, over 2,000 languages, and these are officially registered languages, not dialects, and 1.3 billion people. So, again, just an appreciation of how nuanced and how big Africa is. You cannot take one approach and expect that it'll work across even one country, let alone the continent. And it's also interesting to note that it is the most youthful continent. 77% of the population is under the age of 35. A few things in terms of the growth trajectory. So Africa has the highest fertility rate in the world. And that's something like 4.6 births per woman in sub-Saharan Africa on average. The other thing I want to point out is that it has the fastest rate of urbanization in the world. And this is very significant. Currently, there are a few megacities on the continent, meaning that these are cities that have over 10 million inhabitants. But it's projected that in the next 30 years, Africa will have 14 megacities. So urbanization is a major trend across the world, but specifically in Africa. Africa also has some of the world's fastest growing economies. If anyone here online has been tracing the 10 fastest growing economies in the world over the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, you will see that normally 5 to 6 of them are African economies. And I've got a chart here. And if you take a look at these 3 lines here, you'll see that the green line represents sub-Saharan Africa. So this is the growth in real GDP terms of sub-Saharan African economies. And you'll see that for most of the last, going back to the 2000s, Africa has been above the world's GDP growth, as well as above the advanced economies. So the Canadas, the United States, the European economies of the world. So it's led the world in that. In 2017, there was a dip due to oil prices, but you can see that African economies are extremely resilient because it then again climbed up. And even under COVID, African economies have exhibited the highest amount of growth, or the fastest growth in the world. I'm going to take you to another slide here, which is a heat map, which comes from the IMF. And this is from today. This is the IMF's projection into 2026 in terms of the amount of growth that we will see across the entire world. And you'll see that where it's dark green is where they project the most growth to happen. And this is typically what the world looks like. Africa and a few Asian countries usually lead the world in growth. And you can see that by 2026, that most countries across Africa will exhibit somewhere between 3% to 6% in growth across their economies. And this is very interesting because normally, for instance, in Canada or in the US, our growth is maybe around 1%, 2%, and a good year to be 3%. So you can see that we grow across Africa very well. And I'd just like to highlight a couple of things here as well. So in terms of healthcare, you know, with COVID, when it first hit, some of you might remember that there was a lot of wait and see in terms of what happens with Africa, because people had predicted all kinds of terrible scenarios where it would be almost apocalyptic and Africa would be wiped out because of a lack of access to vaccines, medication, and some of the primary healthcare that we enjoy here in the advanced economies of the world. However, what has been interesting is that throughout most of the time that we've been under the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, Africa has had the lowest case fatality ratios in the world. In other words, the number of people dying in Africa due to COVID, excuse me, has been really amongst the lowest in the world. So this is actually a snapshot of the African CDC's dashboard. And you'll see that it shows that today there's a total of 6.3 million cases and 160,000 deaths. This is across the entire continent. That is actually 5 times less the number of cases in the US and 3.8 times less the number of deaths than in the US. So when you really think about this scale, Africa has not suffered under COVID the same way that most of the world has actually suffered. And the interesting thing is that the healthcare space is growing. It is attracting a lot of investment. There's been some major investment into pharmaceuticals, into hospitals, into tech-enabled healthcare solutions, and so on. So this is a great space for impact, especially when you think about some of the sustainable development goals around health. This is a great space. Another area I want to highlight is trade. So for those who are not aware, as of January 1st this year, Africa started trading under the African Continental Free Trade Area. Now, this is the biggest free trade area in the world since the establishment of the World Trade Organization. By some measures, it actually is the biggest free trade bloc in the world. And this aims to boost intra-Africa trade significantly. And this is projected to lead to consumer and business spending of $6.7 trillion by 2030. So this is going to boost intra-Africa trade very, very significantly. And this also has a very strong impact across most of the SDGs because there's financial inclusion, alleviation of poverty. There's many, many impacts, you know, economic growth and development through job creation that will come through the implementation of this free trade area. It's still in its early days, but it presents a lot of opportunity. And the third thing I want to highlight is just some of the businesses that have really flourished, especially under COVID. So, you know, for those of you who are familiar with the idea of a unicorn is a private company, a startup that is valued at more than $1 billion. So right now, across all of Africa, there are about 6 unicorns, and 3 of them have actually attained unicorn status this year, 2021. And that's really interesting because, again, that speaks to the resilience in a lot of emerging economies across Africa. One of them, I've put the logo here, which is Flutterwave, which is a really interesting one. But there's 3 that are actually fintech, so financial technologies that have become unicorns this year. And what's even more interesting about that specific sector is that so far this year, that sector, the financial technology sector, has attracted $1 billion of investment. So that's from January to July now. $1 billion of investment has poured into African fintechs. Again, this has very strong impact implications because fintechs have provided a route for financial inclusion of those who are in the informal market sectors, those who can't reach the banks, or are not qualified for credit, for instance, through some traditional institutions. And also, of course, with COVID and the need to maintain distancing, fintechs have been really important. And so I also want to mention here the advantages that you will see when you go to African markets. So there's 3 specific things I want to mention, which is, one is that many African markets offer high growth industries. So as I've mentioned, African economies being within the top 10 in terms of growth. For instance, Ethiopia was charting 10% growth, so double-digit growth for something like 10 years in a row before COVID hit. But with high growth industries, the opportunities for businesses are to position themselves in these industries, because just by being present and serving the industry, you are guaranteed a certain amount of growth. That's why investors are very interested in some of these high growth economies. So, I mean, to give you an example, e-commerce from 2014 to 2018, the number of online shoppers on the continent increased on an average of 18% annually. The global average for that is 12%. So there are a whole bunch of industries we could talk about. E-commerce, we could talk about broadband connections, and how Africa has led the world in the number of new broadband connections. We could talk about mobile money, which in many ways had its genesis in Eastern Africa. We could talk about insurance and agriculture, infrastructure. So many different industries are high growth. So by positioning yourself in the industry, you are guaranteed a certain amount of growth. The second thing I want to mention is scale. So again, Africa's current population is 1.3 billion. Of that, it's estimated that 330 million people comprise the consumer market. That's a huge number of people, right? And because it's projected that Africa's population will actually double, remember I mentioned the high fertility rate, by 2015. So you're talking about 1.3 billion people today. We're looking at 2.6 billion people in the next 30 years or less. It means that you have a massive market on your doorstep once you're in the continent. And then the other thing I'd like to mention is underserved markets. So, African markets are just not as mature as our markets are. They're not as industrialized, so there's a lack of access still to many essential products and services that we even take for granted here. So spaces that might be saturated here, you might go into several markets and be the first to offer the type of product that you're offering, or it might be easier to differentiate yourself from the competition. So moving along, so we know that Africa is a huge growth market. There's great opportunities for growth just by positioning yourself. But then we also know that if it was that simple and that easy, that many would already be there. So what are some of the challenges that SMEs, like those of us on this call, would face in terms of entering the market? So one is actually navigating the Canadian landscape. So understanding what is available to you here to support you. So, you know, that's why the ACBN is such a great resource, because it's bringing support to you. But many BIPOC founders are completely under-resourced. We know this. In Canada, we know that this is an issue. It's a systemic issue. And the other thing is that the resources that are available to support you in your export or into entering new markets, most of us are also just completely unaware of what the resources are. The second challenge is accessing timely market intelligence. And this is important for assisting your decision making. So, you know, starting with identifying and profiling the right market for your business. Again, 55 countries, which one are you going to go into? Which city, which province, which state are you going to go into within a country? And then also understanding what are the realistic barriers that you will face to enter these markets, and what kind of strategies can you employ to mitigate some of these risks. And again, also understanding that from a local perspective, because sometimes on the outside, we look at certain barriers and think that that's a no-go. But others locally would understand, no, these are manageable risks. And a lot of what we see as risks are actually perceived risks, not necessarily impactful to your business. And then the third thing would be, how do you outreach to high potential clients and partners in the target market? You need expert representation. So how would you navigate the local cultures, you know, and business nuances, language barriers, and time zones? And also, how do you build a strong local network and build rapport? So this is where we come in. And this is what we've been working with Detailing Nights on for the past few months. So we help you successfully enter African markets. We provide you with a unique solution that is tailored to you and your business, and we will help you select, understand, and then enter the market. So on the right here, I've just highlighted a few of the key features. So we'll provide market intelligence, we'll help you with the market entry strategy, we will provide in-country representation in the market of your choice, and provide curated introductions, as well as help you with access to support and resources here in Canada for those who are joining us from Canada. And throughout this, our services are reliable, customizable. So again, they're customized to you, the client, and they're modular. So we don't say if you commit to the first part that you have to join us for the entire journey. We've created this, we've structured this program so that you can choose at which point you want to continue and at which point you might say, this is not for me. And also we're affordable and we're mission driven. So that's one of the unique things about our approach, is that we're not just purely opportunistic, but we're very driven by economic development, socioeconomic development across the continent. And that's why Detailing Nights has been a great case study, because they also have a social component of economic empowerment, empowering youth with jobs, which is extremely valuable and important in African countries where the youth population is burgeoning, but there's not enough employment opportunities. So how do we take you there? So I'm going to walk you through the actual phases in terms of the service that we will offer you. And just to let you know, there will be a question and answer period when I'm done, probably in the next 5 to 7 minutes or so. And we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. And I'm not actually monitoring the chat at the moment, but as soon as I'm done, then I will definitely monitor that. And I see that Marcus and Yolette are also involved there, so hopefully that helps you out. But phase one. So phase one is really a screening process. And that's just making sure that we have a good fit, client and business fit. And then phase two is where we actually assess the market based on your company or your services, your products, and what you're looking for. And then phase three is when we start to execute the market entry. So just to go into a little more detail with each of these phases. So phase one, what are we looking for? We're doing a little bit of due diligence. It's business, financial, and legal. So it's quite simple. We just need to know that you have a proven business model, so you're not trying something out for the first time, and that you have a commitment to internationalization. You're serious about getting into these new markets. Financially, we want to know that you're generating some revenue, you're profitable, and sometimes you have a threshold. And then also legally, we just want to know that you're, incorporated and you're fully compliant on this side. It's nothing very intrusive. It's usually just a couple of questions that you can answer for us, and we're good with that. So the outcome is a decision again on the client fit for our SME internationalization program. The second phase is the African market entry assessment. And I'm going to invite Marcus just to talk to just briefly what it is that we will provide for you. I'll speak to the inputs, and Marcus will talk to what the output or the deliverables are. So in terms of input, we do have a long form which you will complete, and then we do a couple of deep dive sessions where we're on a call together trying to understand your business more, and then we'll have some information requests. So Marcus, are you?
Thank you, T. So on my side, it's usually, you can essentially just come to us looking to invest in Africa, and I'll assist you identify the country that you might be interested in. If you already don't have a predetermined country that you seek to invest in, based on your interests and whatnot. But if you already have a country that you seek to focus on and perhaps invest in a specific sector, my duty then is to conduct a comprehensive market research to see what are the strengths of the market that you're trying to enter into. What are the weaknesses as an expert that's trying to enter the market, and then making sense of those weaknesses and turning them into strengths so that your penetration into the market can be fluid. Look at the opportunities within those weaknesses that might be on the ground there in Africa or whatever country that you seek to invest in, and also conduct a threat assessment. So what are the potential threats to the actual sector that you're trying to penetrate or enter as an expert, and then turn those threats into opportunities or strengths on your end. So I essentially just conduct an industry overview, dissect it. So it's bilateral. So the first phase will be to look at the overview of the country and the economic potential therein, and then fine tune it and fine cut it into your specific sector of interest, and see what are the potential biggest players that are playing in the market. Are there any potential partners, for example, that you could partner with to make your establishment into the industry much more fluid? And who could we potentially identify as your biggest client? And with regards to market entry risks and barriers, we tend to look at are there any subsidies available for your company? Are there any potential partnerships that could also better enhance your, better facilitate the permeation into the industry? And who are the potential biggest clients in the industry? And how much is, if you're selling products, how much would that cost you to import products into the country? And if you're just looking to maybe set up shop there and partner, we'll then, conduct further research into joint ventures and whatnot. And again, like T said, we are not sector confined. We love research, we love data, we love insights. So we're definitely willing to go into whatever industry or sector that you might be interested in entering. And the advantageous part about having workers on the ground in Africa is that our network is really broad. We have colleagues and partners all across the continent. So where I might not be able to assist you in as far as the ground research is concerned, perhaps maybe you want to enter the solar, or maybe you want to enter the energy sector in Egypt. And I'm in South Africa, we can definitely just conduct some networking with some of our partners on the ground there and just help you enter the market much more easily. So yeah, we do most of the work, and we love what we do. We love research, we love insights, and we really live for creating meaningful partnerships. So for us, it's not only just entering the market and setting up shop and establishing yourself as a company there, but it's also about the benefit that you bring towards the countries of interest that you are investing in as a foreign direct investor. So, like Tafuma mentioned earlier, with Ryan, he's got a social impact approach to his model. Whatever model that you might be using, we know that at the end of the day, it's creating opportunities for the residents of Africa, and it's also creating opportunities for you to generate some revenue. So, yeah, I think that's it from my end.
Fantastic. Thanks, Marcus. So yeah, as I think Marcus gave a very comprehensive overview, you'll get basically a 15-page report from this phase. And that will come out of, that'll be basically a summary of what we research. And one of the key things as well is that we do tend to focus on specific geographies. So we're not looking to, to go right across the continent, because we want to at the same time keep this as, shall we say, basically as geared towards SMEs as possible. For some of our work in the past where we've worked with major multinational clients, it's a different story. But to make this as doable as possible for us and for you, we tend to focus our industries. So that's phase one. And again, it's modular. So you do that phase, and if you feel, okay, this market makes sense for us to jump into, then we start, we actually go into the next phase. Sorry, I skipped a phase there. So each of these phases are standalone. So if you like what you've seen and working with our team, then we can move into this phase 3, which is African market entry execution. And I'm going to invite Nyaleti just to speak a bit here to the importance of branding and marketing within the country that you are interested in penetrating. There's a very strong localization sort of policy that Eschaton has. You'll see that a lot of the people we work with are on the ground. So we're not kind of importing the way that we do things into these markets. It's bridging these markets is a very precise and very, takes a lot of cultural wisdom to be able to do this. So on this phase, what we are doing, the input is what we have learned from the market study that we've done. And then we're going to come to you for some of your marketing materials. So some of your collateral videos you might have, maybe have one-pagers that you share with clients. And we're going to make sure we have that and that it's also appropriate for the target market. And then we're going to look at what your business development strategy is. And from that, we will then be prepared to start executing on the actual market entry. So Nyaleti, do you want to just share a little bit again on the importance of marketing and branding within the local environment?
So not to repeat what you said, you can already see with Africa that we have a branding problem. I'm sure when you Google us, you see all these challenges that we have. But however, there's still a very good market and large opportunities that lie within this market. When you look at how media has put out Africa, that's why people like Eschaton are very vital to changing that narrative. So without the insight from Marcus, it's very difficult for us to do our job in terms of branding, because Marcus then comes in with the market research, which tells us exactly how much is our consumer earning? What type of person are they? There's a lot of behavioral psychology that comes out, and one important thing is that you need to have true insight into this market. You can have in one localized area, you can have 3 different markets. I can just give you an example of the South African market right now. You have a very big gap between the wealthiest and you have the lower end, but the lower end carry the economy. That's where most people become billionaires from selling to the local market. I'm going to move on to just some marketing strategies. You know, they call us this m-commerce. You know, we are very mobile, mobile friendly. The whole of Africa is very mobile friendly. You are having 650 million mobile users, but I'll give you what that means. So in South Africa, we have 22 million mobile users, but 90 million mobile connections. So we have to a person more than one mobile connection. So that market does not need to be underestimated. You know, Africans will scrutinize your product. There will be some skepticism. So what you need to make sure firstly is that you have researched your product. Is it appropriate for the African market? Are you going to redesign it to fit the African market? And some of the strategies that we are using, for all of us, we need intel. So we are going digital. We leverage a lot on social media. You need to be active on social media, but our activity is not necessarily across the board. It's what do South Africans like? What do Africans like in terms of social media? So you have to have that strategy. Once again, I won't, Tafuma spoke about how nuanced Africa is. So you are also looking at the networking. Is the companies, Marcus spoke about other companies we can partner with, where we find those synergies so that it's for you ease into this market. Another thing that we love is very intelligent marketing campaigns. We love those, especially digital ones. We are a thinking nation, so we love things that are quirky. So that's where you gain traction because you catch attention. We love all publicity, good and bad. We just like Americans. You can also leverage on our existing relationships. I saw somebody asked about music. We have worked with the Department of Arts and Culture. In fact, we hold the database for the National Department of Arts and Culture. We've worked with various musicians. That can also be important. And you heard Marcus speak about how those partnerships come into play because we are relational. We're very relational. So that networking is a crucial role. And we put a lot of value on our relationships. And then on top of that, you know, we use normal traditional publicity. As you can see, we still have a high usage of traditional methods of media. However, you have seen a lot of the big media houses going digital. So we use a lot of publicity to get our products out there. So yeah, there's a lot of strategies that we use, and this is just broad across all sectors. However, we have to be very targeted. I can, you know what digital does, I can just give you an example within the tourism market. If you are not in the income range to afford to stay at, as you know, in South Africa, we are prime tourism destinations. If you don't in that income, we're not going to market to you. Yeah, so that shows you how important our data analytics come into play in terms of our marketing and publicity and social media. Would you like me to go on? I think that's
Yeah. No, thanks so much, Janeti. So I think Janeti again has highlighted just the importance of the localization. And so that's one thing we bring. You know, one of the things that Ryan has often mentioned is that, you know, he feels like we're a team working together, and he's got access to this team that is working on this. And that's a benefit of what we bring. We bring your team, which is based on the continent, to help you and do some of the heavy lifting to help you enter the market. So yeah, and really what we're leveraging is, again, digital strategies, as well as, because of COVID right now, a lot of things can be done virtually. So we will set you up with virtual meetings. You know, in the past, it was really important to get you on the ground almost from start, but we can leverage this current environment to actually, you know, basically save you money by setting up important face-to-face meetings with high potential partners and clients before you ever land on the ground. So that's what we aim to get you to at this phase. We aim to get you at the table with the right decision makers from the right companies and organizations. And then as a value add, as we go throughout phase 2 and phase 3, so the market assessment, as well as the market entry execution, we have the capability to explore and access resources from the Canadian public and private sector institutions. I have a colleague who couldn't join us today because she's currently in Nigeria and celebrating Eid, but she has firsthand knowledge and access to a lot of the resources that are available from the public sector. So whether it's from Export Development Canada, Trade Commissioner Service, or some of the provincial Canadian institutions, as well as some of the other ones that that are rising up. And I think even the ACBN offers some important support to to entrepreneurs. And so our database is more focused on export and export development. But yeah, that's what we offer. And some of these resources would be market intelligence reports, market research funds, in-country travel funding, access to industry networks, and business training. So that brings us to the conclusion of our presentation. And we would love to discuss further with you, answer any questions you might have in this time that we have here. There's my contact info and our admin contact info, so you can take a moment to copy that down if you'd like. On our website, you can also reach us, as I think you've seen the website at the bottom there throughout the presentation. And of course, through Ryan, you can also engage us and reach us. So, Ryan.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, screenshot this email address. Make sure, send an email right away and lock in your spot, because I know at least 5 businesses that are ready to do business with Eschaton. So get in the queue. And I want to thank you, brother, and team Nalete and Marcus for taking the time. This presentation was fantastic. It's a great first step. I mean, just understanding this flow, I feel more comfortable entering Africa. And I know everybody on this call at least has that better comfort when thinking about expanding to the continent. So this is fantastic. Let's check. I don't know, we can see in the chat, or if you wanted to unmute and ask a question, go right ahead as I check through the chat.
Yeah, I had a quick question, Ryan.
Sure.
Ready? I'm an emerging artist out of Toronto, Ontario, and I have roots that trace back to Ghana. I do hip hop, I do spoken word poetry. Like, what advice to tap into the African market or music realm would you give an artist like myself for the people that work on the marketing and branding in Africa?
Yeah. No, it's a good question, Freddie. And I actually did some music. So just a little side note, I used to do a little bit of music back in the day. And when I was living in Ghana, I had the opportunity to actually record with a couple of producers there. And we actually put on a show where we had Wizkid and D Black and some of these guys years ago, 2012, 2013, when they're still small, still coming out. So so I actually have a personal connection to the music industry in Ghana. But I think your question is a really good question. And I think sometimes within the arts, there might be just the thought that you don't need to take as strategic an approach. But I think the fact that you're here and asking these questions shows that you are thinking very strategically on it. And I'm actually going to invite Nalete to speak a little more to this, because I know that from the branding and marketing kind of vantage point, she could probably add a lot more value than I could. But yeah, what I would just contribute here before handing it over is saying that it's really important to understand who the key stakeholders are and the regulators are in the industry. In South Africa, we have SAMRO, for instance, with the licensing and publishing, and the importance of having like a local publisher who can get your music, your product in the right hands, I think is a key thing. Nalete?
Yeah, I think you've answered it very well. yeah, it is very important to have very good publicist and so on. One thing that I have realized on market entry into the music industry, I've seen a lot of collaborations. A lot of the financial resources that go into musicians in South Africa, you find that it is corporates that actually book most of our artists. Yeah, we book, and that's where they're making quite a lot of the income from corporates. Yeah, so it is just to have that. So you find a lot of our artists are very clean. They always have a message behind them, and those are the ones that are really we see balling. So yeah, but the collaboration is key in entry to any market in terms of music.
Yeah, and as you'll know probably, Freddie, that they have sophisticated tastes, musical tastes across the continent, and the maturity of the music industry in the sense of being able to support artists is not at the same level as it is in a lot of advanced economies. So to Nyaletti's point, you're going to play gigs where you're, and everybody does this, where you're not going to make necessarily much, but those key kind of, locking those corporates is probably a good strategy. That's something we'd look into if you were keen.
Solid. I did
Thank
see
you.
a hand raised, Sunil. You want to go ahead?
Yeah, good night, everyone. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate you guys. I just wanted to touch on the import-export. And for us, we're in farming, and we're definitely looking to really build out the import-export side of things, knowing that we have been empowering farmers from different countries to be able to, do more farming and, make a market here for them as well, but also vice versa, try to connect with them for us to be able to export stuff to them. So would you guys be able to market entry where we're able to build the warehouse side and the communication of strategic planning with connecting with the right shipment company and things like that? Is that part of the deal as well?
Fantastic question and fantastic industry. Eschaton was actually the regional representative for the African Agri Council for a few years. So it's a space that we're very passionate about and is extremely important to the continent. We do provide that logistics support. So we actually have a logistics partner who we work very closely with. We've done import-export in the past, personally done it with that particular partner. We have a few other options as well. And we, in fact, one of the companies that I started when I was living in South Africa was a logistics company where we moved dry food goods for a few years. So it's a space that we're very familiar with, and we know that the deal can actually pretty much sink or float based on whether or not you can land it and get it to market or source it, depending on what you're trying to do efficiently. So yeah, that's part of the deal.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah.
Solid. Yes, if there's any other questions, we do have about 5 more minutes.
There's actually a few questions that I managed to get out the chat. So this one is from Warren. He said, "Hi everyone, I'm from Toronto. He's interested in the education sector in English-speaking African countries." So I think I can take that one. You would have to be specific. Are you looking to establish your own institution in Africa? Or are you looking to, I don't know, do some online teaching? Or I don't know if Warren could just briefly just elaborate on what he meant by he's interested in the education sector, if he's there. Okay, there was another one. I'm not sure who raised this one up, but it was with regards to immigration, I think. If you are still online, feel free to just elaborate. They were interested in South Africa, Botswana, Egypt, Ghana, and Ethiopia.
I think, was that Angela?
Yeah, I think it was Angela, yeah.
Mm.
I'm not sure if she's still online.
Sorry, Marcus, it's Warren. Did you mention my name?
Say again? Yeah, Warren, yeah. You mentioned something about the education sector, and you're interested in English-speaking African countries.
Right. So I'm interested in ed tech in particular in English-speaking African countries, and I have I have a platform for K-12, and also something that could also be used in post-secondary and consumer markets.
I've actually done some work in education before, but it was more aligned to trying to set up an establishment or an institution and introducing new or new alternative angles to the curriculum. So I think if you could just forward an email to Puma with regards to the specifics, and I think we can take it from there.
All right, Tafuma, I just hit you up on LinkedIn. So
fantastic, it's a great model because what you can do, your distribution model can be completely online, if I understand it correctly. So that's something we could certainly explore.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
And then there was one more from Tim.
Marcus.
Sorry.
This is Angela Scarlett. You had mentioned my name.
Yes. I think you had mentioned something with regards to immigration and business. You're interested in South Africa, Botswana, Egypt, Ghana, and Ethiopia.
Yes, I am. I'm totally interested in expanding into those countries. We actually do the reverse. We help people expand into the North American market, North America and Europe. So.
Happy to support and to find out more about what you do and how we could, possibly collaborate. That's the other angle, of it. That's the other side of the coin. So it's certainly something, we'd be very happy to explore.
Yeah, I connected with you on LinkedIn, so I'll follow up. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Angela. Kara has her hand up.
Who's got a hand up?
Hi.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Kara.
What is the appetite like for solar products or energy efficiency products there on the continent? And I know it's a large continent, but are there specific areas where there would be more interest in solar type products or energy efficiency products?
Absolutely, that's a booming business. So Africa actually has the best land in the world, basically, for generating solar power and also many other types of power. So energy efficiency is really important. Most of the grids actually lose about 50% of the energy that they actually put into the grid. So so there's a huge leakage problem, and that means that basically the people who are supposed to be the consumers are not getting the energy that they need for business and for in many cases everyday life. So there's a deficit of energy. So that's a very important sector.
Yeah, I think to add on to that as well, I've actually done some work in solar energy, particularly in modeling and energy calculations at a specific site and whatnot. So I think, again, you probably have to send an email to Tafuma and just elaborate on what exactly in the energy sector would you be interested in investing in or permeating in. Are you looking to supply solar products? Are you looking to establish your own solar plant and perhaps sell electricity on the grid? Are you looking to perhaps maybe ascertain the solar potential in a specific country in Africa and that sort of thing? So I think, you can just send an email to T with regards to that. So then Appy had a question. She was asking if.
Sorry, I think Cara was just making one more comment.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
So it's more about the products and the appetite for the products, not necessarily putting up my own energy like grid or product, but selling products to people that are there. And I'm also wondering about the Caribbean connection, because I'm originally from the Caribbean. So in the future, the plan is to go back at some point. so, and I would like to continue doing this business. So how would that work, exporting from the Caribbean to Africa?
Yeah, well, we'd have to explore it. So, right now, what we're offering is focused on Canada, Africa, just because, again, we're trying to stay really lean and efficient at what we do so that it's very accessible for SMEs. We could always explore, the Caribbean, because there's a lot of stuff happening between the Caribbean and Africa already. But I would say that once you've established that kind of trade connection and linkage and strong network for what you want to do, then you might not be limited to one particular geography, but that would have to be explored. Yeah, so please do get in touch. Ryan, I know we have more questions, but I want to ask you because I'm not sure if we're going over time here.
Yeah, as long as you're good in your team, I'm in no rush. So yeah, you could definitely check. I did see that question about, can Eschaton speak to French-speaking countries? Any experience in Abidjan, for example?
Yeah, Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire. Yes, so we can do that. Our strong suit right now, and this is a bit of a tragedy, but our strong suit is Anglophone Africa. But we do work with and in Francophone Africa. It's actually very underserved. I saw a question on what is underserved. Francophone markets typically lag Anglophone markets in terms of development. So we have, members and consultants that we work with who are French speaking. We're actually bilingual, multilingual, not just bilingual. So yes, we can look at Francophone countries.
Mm. I think I can probably possibly add something to Christopher's question on underserved markets. Fourth industrial revolution, mobile technology, telemedicine, mobile solutions, more especially with the advent of the pandemic, more and more countries are looking towards digitizing as a mechanism of emerging more successfully, or generating new markets within the 4IR space. So yeah, 4IR is definitely an area that is still underserviced for now. So it's something you could potentially look into. For if you want more insight in that, I think again you have to email to Puma.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I mean, again, just because the continent is so big, certain regions, have more access to other resources than other regions. So, yeah, if you could get in contact and we could explore that more. There was a question around franchising. That was an interesting question as well. And so,
yeah, I see it here where it says, hi Tafuma from Tim. Part of my business is setting up franchises for clients, but I also have a few businesses that my team and I schedule to go to Asia and the UK to franchise. Does Eschaton Solutions have a business model for franchising new Black-led businesses?
So yeah, thanks, Ryan. That's a very interesting question. I think we'd have to tease that apart a little bit more to understand, are you talking about bringing a recognized franchise into an African market? Are you talking about creating a new franchise?
I can answer that. I'm here. Yeah. If you want me to answer that, Stefan. How you doing?
Sure. Yeah. Good.
My background is for corporate. For 30-something years, I work with all the major food corporations, Kara, Surcorp, and brought franchises all across Canada. And I've left that to actually help Black-led businesses. So it's not for the well-known. It's for scalability of Black-led businesses. So I come into a client and look at the possibility of seeing them come outside of a box and have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 locations and then scale that for them. So it's directly for Black businesses to not think of themselves as buying themselves a job, but think of themselves as buying a company that they could scale. So not everyone has the franchise models and understand that. That's why they bring me in and my team. And I have a few of my own that I could do, that I'm doing right now. I'd love to actually get into Africa, but it wasn't planned till 2025 that we were going to look at that. So I was wondering if you guys had that already.
Yes. So we don't help companies franchise, so to speak. However, one of the entry models for a new market is franchising. So I think that this would be an interesting conversation, especially if you have clients who you think at some point would want to enter an African market. It's something we could totally support because it's just one of the I guess transfer related entry strategies. So it's not a straight import export strategy, but it's something closer to foreign direct investment. And so we look at the whole scale of them. So yeah, Tim, would love to have a conversation and understand a little bit more, what you do and how we could possibly.
For sure.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess we could do last call. If there's any final questions, or Marcus, did you see any additional ones in the chat?
I think we've addressed all of them.
One just popped up actually from Cara.
One just popped up.
Yeah. So actually, Marcus, you kind of spoke to this, around the issue of impact. It's a good question, Cara. So we do look for alignment, and we normally find that in the screening phase, because we are not looking to basically engage a business that's going to be completely detrimental to to the environment that we're taking them into. And I think that what we'll find is that in most cases where you want to create value, where value is not being created at the moment, there's a way it can be done that incorporates social and also environmental metrics, and values into it. So that's something we do take very seriously, very, very seriously. We're from the continent, my team is from the continent. We're not looking to see what happens in mining, for instance, replicated in other industries. So, and mining actually has some good examples. So I don't mean to do that industry down. Some very positive examples actually, but yeah, we're serious about impact.
I think I have a question for Cara. So by health problems, what exactly do you mean? Obesity or?
Yeah, basically, obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart problems. The food industry especially is a bit of a you can call it a pandemic, but it happens everywhere. Everywhere you see a McDonald's or a KFC.
Yeah.
It happened in St. Vincent. Like everybody just flocks there, and then you see the problems just start to unravel. People don't want to cook anymore. They don't want to. A whole bunch of stuff.
So I guess my question to you then is, within the context of this question, are you looking to perhaps address the health problems that emerge with fast food franchises, or you asking because you might want to get in that sector?
I think it's just a personal question. I'm really focused on the energy efficiency component. However, the businesses I work with, I need to be aligned with them. I like to work with like-minded people who have an ethical component to what they do, and the whole morality and intention of why you're doing business. And I've seen too many times that these large organizations or companies go into so-called third world countries that I call them de-developed countries, but they go into these countries and they leave a mess and they don't clean it up. So they walk away with a whole bag of money. So I just wanted to know if there was some thought put into that and kind of the repercussions of, it's not just about making money, but also the outcome of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think most definitely, I think Eschaton is definitely people orientated. Ryan is a perfect example of that, since he runs a more green, friendly company. Those are the kind of companies that we want to work with, because we want to make Africa more progressive and more viable and valuable with regards to the kind of enterprises that permeate the market.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Wonderful. And as we're just wrapping up, listen, people, when we're planning the trip to Africa, people that have been on this call get the first rights to refusal of the ticket. So Tafuma, Marcus, Naleti, let us know when we can schedule that trip out there to really get boots on the ground. But in the meantime, please reach out to Tafuma and his team with any questions that you have. Start that dialogue and let's progress. And I saw Christopher Lawrence put in the chat, this is a great bridge to doing business on the continent. And hey, I'm excited and looking forward to seeing more of us take advantage of that as well. So thank you again to everybody that has joined us today. If you know anybody that should have been here and missed it, get in contact with me. I will get the recording to them. Well, I'll get the recording to you first so you can share it with them. But I'm looking forward to, I'm entering phase 3. Get on board, enter phase 1, and let's get that. Let's unlock Africa. And I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and thank you once again, Ryan, so much for for having us. Oh, I see, Warren. Were you raising your hand? Did you have your hand raised there?
Yeah, I was.
Ryan, do we have? Can we give
go
him,
right ahead.
yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Just wanted to say, first of all, this was great. Ryan, thanks for bringing us all together. You guys did a great presentation.
Thank you.
As some of you may know, I run First Fridays, but a couple of months ago, we had a gentleman on who had created a currency called the Lumi, which is a Pan-African currency. It's based on solar and the gold standard. So, it's actually a real currency, and it's really targeted at the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and the diaspora. I just was wondering if you guys are familiar with it, or if you have any thoughts on it, if you've come across it. So those are that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't come across that one in particular. Yeah, if you have any info on it, would love to check it out and find out more about it. Crypto and blockchain has been very interesting for Africa. Nyaleti could speak to that. Marcus could speak to that too. Especially with some of the recent events, for instance, with NSARS in Nigeria, which I'm sure some people might be familiar with. Bitcoin was actually the main means of fundraising for that campaign. And in Zimbabwe, where we've had really, hyperinflation for years, they've explored digital currencies and so on. So it has a place. It's still, I think, across the continent, still figuring out how it fits into the scheme of things. But yeah, would be happy to take a look at some information on that, Warren, if you could
Sure.
shoot me something.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. So it's not quite a blockchain. It's a bit different.
Right.
Because
Okay.
it's actually tied to
Based on gold
and solar, and
yeah.
I guess they're trying to position it like the euro. I mean, it makes sense that with the free trade agreement, that having a common currency, I think, would be in our best interest. So yeah, I'll definitely share that with you.
Yeah, thank
Excellent.
you.
And last check, take down the email address, ladies and gentlemen. Don't email me asking, oh, can you send me the email address? The next email that you send should be to Tafuma and his team to schedule your initial consultation. So actually, hold on. I know Tafuma, you had put it in the chat before. Can you just put it in the chat one last time before we
sure. Absolutely.
wrap up? But yeah, I'll give everybody back their evenings. The email address is there. Introduce yourself, ask your questions, and I'll check with Tafuma what would be an interesting next set or next step, maybe another presentation about something specific or one of the other pillars that you mentioned, when it's ready. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. Oh, go ahead.
Well, you know what, Ryan, to that point, we haven't even discussed this yet, but Nyaleti could really talk to this. We actually have an Africa-Canada FinTech Summit coming up. And I think that could be really interesting for your people. And we'll share that with you, Ryan. We'll share the details. That's going to be September 22nd. And it's really about connecting the Canadian and African FinTech ecosystems. We referenced it a little bit here during the presentation. Nyaleti, did you want to just give a short spiel on that?
And you said that was September 22nd?
September 22nd. Yeah.
All right.
Fintech has just taken the world by storm. And in Africa, especially, it's creating so much of wealth for our Africans. We have been speaking about having a currency throughout Africa for years. I can't even tell you how many years. But that has not been able to materialize. And now that you're seeing the private sector coming through to create products that are very important to bringing wealth into into Africa. Somebody was speaking about the sustainability of companies that come into Africa, but through entrepreneurship, that is our only one of our biggest sources of income, of creating jobs. We want the entrepreneur, we want the innovation. So with the FinTech Summit that we'll be having on the 22nd of September, which is very exciting, we are looking at taking this African ecosystem. You have all these startups who are sitting in basements and creating amazing products. And I spoke to you about how big our mobile commerce market is in Africa. So, however, investments might be low in the African diaspora. So now you have the Canadians who are coming in, and you already with your big with your fintech your fintech hubs. I know somebody has accelerators here. You have a very steady and good a very steady financial market. So that collaboration is just vital for the African market, but it's also vital for the Canadian market, because you're going to get new insights. You're opening up to a new market. So this is very exciting. I was just looking up Lumi, and that is very interesting. So yeah, we look forward. And if you guys are interested in the fintech market, you can email the same email address. I don't know if I should add another one for the fintech.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could just add that. Yeah, Warren, it would be great to connect to the whole Lumi, company, I suppose, or entrepreneur to the FinTech Summit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. He's actually Canadian, of Jamaican descent, living in Africa and Europe. So,
wow.
I'll definitely look to connect you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, we'll get more info to you, Ryan, as well, and then you can share with your group.
Yeah, if there's a flyer for it already, we'll get it onto the calendar and then help to promote it through the newsletters for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your evening and enjoy your next conversations with Tafuma and his team from Eschaton Solutions. I anticipate there'll be many of them. Let's get it done.
All right. Thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you, everybody.
Of course.
Take care.
Thank you, Ryan, and everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Good night.